Finland, like every other Nordic country, is a model country of welfare. We are happy, well-educated, and rides to hospital are not luxury items. But one thing that doesn't come to mind when thinking about a Nordic welfare nation is casinos and gambling. If you have visited Finland, you must have noticed the slot machines that seem to be everywhere, scratch cards on grocery store cashiers, and advertisements for different lotteries. These all are connected to one company, Veikkaus. Veikkaus is a betting agency owned by the Finnish government. It got its current form in 2017 when Veikkaus, Fintoto and RAY fused in together. Veikkaus has a monopoly on gambling products, so when you are exchanging money for dopamine with a negative return of investment, you are supporting Veikkaus. To be more effective on leeching people's money, Veikkaus naturally offers its services on the go, but online they need to compete against other casinos. Gambling can be a quite harmful addiction that causes severe problems. This is used to argue why it should be under the strict supervision of the government. This causes a bit of a dilemma for Veikkaus. It is said in the Finnish law that Veikkaus needs to reduce and prevent harms caused by gambling.
It's time to stop!
And Veikkaus, according to themselves, obey this rule as they love to remind people that they are a responsible gambling company. But on the other hand, as a company that tries to increase their revenue and profits, they need to urge people to gamble more. Profitability in itself is not a problem for Veikkaus, as the gambling business is one of the most profitable businesses there is. Mainly because the profits of casinos are guaranteed by a higher power. And I am not talking about God, that privilege belongs to churches. I am talking about mathematics. There is pretty much only one risk that poses a threat for the profits of casinos: regulation. Working with the government is a double-edged sword. Veikkaus cannot throw away all morality like some other casinos do, as they try to pump out every penny from their customers. But the monopoly status helps to make up for those losses. And it's not like the extra regulation coming from the government is too big of a burden to bear, as they have relatively free hands to operate. For example, Veikkaus has no problems when it comes to advertising. Veikkaus is the only entity that can advertise gambling in Finland. There are a few loopholes from which a Finn can be targeted by gambling advertising that is not offered by Veikkaus. TV channels that are not based in Finland are not affected by this law, so they can run advertisements for foreign casinos. Another loophole, and perhaps more lucrative than the traditional media route that gambling companies use, is social media. Different casino streams are quite common in the streaming space nowadays. And for a good reason, as it is one of the easiest ways to make money on social media, assuming that you don't lose your good night's sleep because your fans are losing money. Of course, you can underline the fact that you will lose money if you gamble, but naturally, that is as pointless as trying to extinguish a house fire with a water gun, when you are the very next moment celebrating your new jackpot win. These small loopholes do not have a great effect in the grand scheme of things, as Veikkaus is literally everywhere. Veikkaus is in the grocery stores, sporting events, radio and television.
Tulkaa pelaamaan rahapelilottoa. Pelatkaa joukolla, hiukan onnea ja voitatte paljon rahaa.
So if you are a gambling addict, you are constantly reminded of the convenient ways you can get rid of your money. This is kind of funny, because other vices, alcohol and tobacco, are more strictly handled. In order to advertise alcoholic beverages, you must jump through more hoops than a border collie on agility competition. And tobacco products are so well hidden in grocery stores that not even Indiana Jones could find them. However, there are some guidelines that Veikkaus must follow when it comes to advertising. For example, they cannot advertise the more harmful games, like slot machines. But rules are meant to be broken, and Veikkaus has done so multiple times. They can also maneuver these rules with earned advertising. This basically means every public outing about Veikkaus that they do not have to pay for. For example, many news outlets publish news about lottery winners. These news are mostly based on briefings that Veikkaus gives, so they are more close to marketing than journalism. Here is a news story about a guy who won a jackpot from a slot machine, a product that Veikkaus is not allowed to advertise, but sprinkle a small amount of journalism into it by asking how the guy feels about his jackpot, and all is fine and dandy here. Veikkaus offers a great variety of games, and now is a good time to point out that different forms of gambling are not equally harmful as intensity and addictivity are factors that affect how harmful a game is. For example, the lottery is not as harmful as roulette or blackjack, as it is slow-paced and not as addicting. But by far, the most harmful ones are slot machines. Slot machines have not always been this bad. The old mechanical machines were quite slow and plain as a white bread. But with a careful R&D process, the addictivity of these machines has gone through the roof. Modern slot machines have a plethora of elements which makes them more appealing. Banger tunes, exciting game mechanics like bonus games, and neat graphics. Because of these reasons, it is no wonder that slots are so popular, and the most lucrative product for casinos. Veikkaus does not only have these gold mines for gamblers' money in casinos and game halls, as they can be found from everyday locations. Slot machines are by no means hidden away from the public, as they are placed in a way that it is pretty difficult to do your groceries without noticing the presence of the slot machines. This overwhelming presence of gambling has made it so that kids have been exposed to gambling in Finland way before when loot boxes became a thing. Veikkaus has made efforts to reduce the gambling of minors, and there have been improvements in this front, but this is still a problem. The lion's share of the shit Veikkaus gets from the public is about the slot machines. On average, one slot machine makes 31,000 for Veikkaus, and the establishments where these machines are located get a portion of the profits, so they have a financial motive to keep the machines free from regulation. As a state-owned gambling monopoly, it is pretty obvious that Veikkaus has a great power. And with great power comes great responsibility. Luckily for us, Veikkaus has a great sense of responsibility. This of course is nothing special. Gambling companies love to tell their customers how responsible they are. But Veikkaus has an ace up its sleeve. They give away their profits back to the people in the form of subsidies to organizations Veikkaus is worthy. That was also stated in the old slogan of Veikkaus. Suomalainen voittaa aina. A Finn always wins. Emphasizing that even when you lose your money in gambling, someone else benefits from it. So basically, Veikkaus only takes the operating costs and returns the rest. This sounds pretty great, but this Samaritan Act is not without its problems. Veikkaus supports all kinds of organizations, social, culture, science, sports, etc. The money is basically paid to these organizations by the government, but if the money comes from Veikkaus, they will know it. And this can be slightly problematic, because when you know who pays your bills, you have a vested interest to make it so that said entity is able to pay your bills in the future. Another problem is the origin of the money that is being given away. Veikkaus is targeting less wealthier individuals than those with more money. And don't get me wrong, Veikkaus would likely be more than happy to take money from rich people, but they know that the less fortunate ones will use more of their products. This is the reason why Veikkaus has positioned more slot machines in poorer neighborhoods. Sports and culture are heavily being supported by Veikkaus, and these activities are more used by the wealthier parts of the Finns. Because the bulk of the profits that Veikkaus is collecting is coming from the less wealthier Finns, part of the Veikkaus subsidies is redistribution of wealth from the poor to rich. This giving the money back to the people is always the first line of defense when Veikkaus is being criticized, as people fear that without Veikkaus all sports, culture, science, etc. would disappear. But do we really need to uphold this gambling regime to pay up for these things? I am pretty sure that in Finland, where tax rates are higher than Snoop Dogg on 20th of April, an arrangement could be made so that we wouldn't need to have slot machines in every corner and still have all these nice things. And one aspect that is often absent in these discussions is how much Veikkaus causes costs for the nation. The money that Finns lose in gambling is one thing, but how about the cost that gambling addicts cause? Gambling addiction is not seen as serious as, for example, alcohol addiction, because in that case the negatives are quite easily seen. Often the only negatives that is seen in gambling addiction is the weak financial situation, but there is much more. Just like the victims of other addictions, gambling addicts burden the healthcare system and are often unable to work. So they basically finance the government with their gambling, but take way more than they give. Gambling addicts are bad for society, but for Veikkaus, they are their most important clients. Gambling has extremely skewed Pareto principle, meaning that a very small portion of those who gamble produce the majority of the gambling losses. This is something Veikkaus says it's trying to change, but if they would want their profits to stay the same, more Finns should pick up gambling as their casual hobby. Another common way people try to defend Veikkaus is arguing that without Veikkaus, the money of the Finnish gambling addicts would go to foreign gambling companies and would never be seen again in Finland. Perhaps, but do we still need slot machines in grocery stores? I mean, you could still gamble online or at a specific location, so maybe addicts wouldn't go gambling on foreign casinos just out of spite. Because there is such a strong gambling regime in Finland, it would be safe to assume that Finns gamble a lot. And that is the right assumption, as Finland is in the top 5 rankings when it comes to amount of gambling. And this is only natural when you take into account the amount of advertising Veikkaus does and the mentality that if you gamble with Veikkaus, you are donating money to a good cause. As a nation, Finns are terrible at personal finance. Saving and investing are still fairly odd things, and alarmingly many see the lottery as a only means to gain wealth. Between the years 2017 and 2018, Finns invested on average €172 on funds and stocks. On the other hand, €678 was spent on gambling. Of course, investing is similar to gambling, meaning that there is a real chance for losing your money, especially if your financial advice comes from Reddit. But this comparison is quite a good image of the Finnish consuming habits. The old saying, which describes lottery as a tax for the stupid, is pretty fitting here. Veikkaus has taken some steps to avoid and reduce problems caused by gambling. These steps, however, come after years of running in the wrong direction. But hey, it is a start. And as I said in the beginning, Veikkaus is not all bad, as it has some redeeming qualities. Veikkaus has added a little slogan to their advertisements. Pidetään pelaaminen ilon puolella. And what they mean by that is basically, don't gamble too much.
Stop it. Get some help.
Naturally, it is highly unlikely that those with gambling problems will go, well shit, why didn't I think that myself, after hearing this message. One of the latest actions Veikkaus has done to battle gambling problems is setting mandatory loss limits for fast-paced games. That means you can only lose €500 in a day or €2,000 in a month on these games. But you can still lose more money on lottery or sport betting if you max out your limits on slots, etc. And these limits don't include casinos. Veikkaus has made it mandatory to register as a member to play slots, thus limiting the opportunity to play if you're underage.
Sä oot alaikäinen. Se ihan oikeesti vittuu sitä, sä oot alaikäinen.
This mandatory membership will also affect other games Veikkaus offers, like lottery, in the future. This is mostly seen as a good thing, but if you are pessimistic, you may see this as a great opportunity for Veikkaus to gather information about its clients. Also, as a hurdle to slow down gambling, it is not that effective. Once you have registered, there are many options on how to identify when gambling. Veikkaus and its position in Finland is quite a dividing topic. Some say that its monopoly should be removed and Finland should implement a license model that is used, for example, in Sweden. Others are happy with the situation as it is and wouldn't change a thing. Personally, I am not against gambling. If you can handle it and find it entertaining, there is nothing wrong with it. But since it is a vice that is often belittled, the situation as it is now is not optimal. I think that Veikkaus has some improvements to do, starting with the removal of slot machines from everyday locations. Also, now that they can, they should focus more on providing their services abroad. You know, don't shit where you eat.